Okay, so the topic is active transport and electrochemical gradient. So in this topic, we will study how the electrochemical gradient drives the transport of solute. The electrochemical gradient is created at the expense of energy in the form of ATP hydrolysis or in the form of oxidation reaction, oxidation of fuel. So in this way, the energy is invested to pump some ions into the periplasm and a electrochemical gradient is created. Now what is the meaning of this electrochemical gradient? Gradient means difference. Difference in the concentration of the chemicals, that is chemical gradient, and difference in the charge is electrical gradient. Okay, so two types of gradients are created, that is charge, difference in the charge and difference in the concentration of some chemicals, that is particularly the ions. So therefore it is called as electrochemical gradient. Okay, and this electrochemical gradient is used for solute transport, therefore it is transport and electrochemical gradient. And since energy is spent for this solute uptake, it is called as active transport. Okay, so active transport and electrochemical gradient, this is the title of today's lecture. When we discuss about the active transport, we discuss that active transport requires energy and active transport requires some transporter proteins. Okay, but besides that, there is one of the important feature of active transport, and that feature is active transport accumulates solute above equilibrium point. Equilibrium means equal concentration on both the sides. In passive transport, we have seen that the solute molecule travel from their high concentration region to low concentration region to attain an equilibrium. But in active transport, the solute molecules are transported from their low concentration region to high concentration region, that is against the equilibrium. Okay, so for example, if a cell is living in an atmosphere where the iron concentration is very low, cell require iron for its survival, cell already has some iron in the cytoplasm, still cell require more iron, so from the low concentration region of iron, cell will uptake the iron and it will grow. Okay, so it will, so in active transport, solutes are transported against the concentration gradient. That means it is transported from the low concentration region to high concentration region. Okay, this transport is thermodynamically unfavorable. It means that it will not occur until and unless energy is provided. Okay, heat is provided, therefore it is called as endergonic reaction. Okay, it is endergonic because it requires energy, then only it can transfer the solute molecule from low concentration to high concentration region. You can see that there is low concentration of solute in the periplasm, and these solutes are uptaken by the cell at the expense of energy. ATP is hydrolyzed. ATP hydrolysis is an exergonic process because it liberates energy, and then this energy is used to uptake the solute. So there is high concentration of solute inside the cell, inside the cytoplasm, low concentration in the periplasm. So against the concentration gradient, there is transport of solute molecule. So therefore this is energetically unfavorable reaction. It is endergonic reaction. It has to be coupled with another exergonic reaction. This is generally the active transport. And the primary active transport requires primary source of energy. Primary active transport requires primary source of energy such as ATP hydrolysis or oxidation reactions or absorption of sunlight. whereas the secondary active transport requires secondary source of energy. Now what is the meaning of this secondary source of energy? It means the energy which is derived from primary source of energy. Energy derived from primary source of energy is called as secondary source of energy. So this secondary source of energy is nothing but the electrochemical gradient. Okay, electrochemical gradient means the difference in the concentration of that ions and difference in the charge. Okay, electro is related to charge and chemical is related to ions. So when protons are transported by active transport into periplasm, it increases the concentration of protons in the periplasm, and protons are positively charged. Therefore, the outer face of the cell membrane is positively charged. Okay, so it creates a difference in the charge. Outer face is positively charged, inner face is negatively charged. Okay, so there is a difference in the charge, and there is high concentration of protons in the outer side. Therefore, it also creates a chemical gradient. So together it creates an electrochemical gradient. Now these protons flow passively back into the cytoplasm through a specific transporter protein. Okay, so when protons flow from their high concentration region to low concentration region, they do not require energy. And while coming back into the cytoplasm, they bring along with them solute. Particular diagram, you can see that the primary active transport is pumping the protons. Suppose this X is nothing but protons. So protons are pumped into the periplasm. So there is high concentration of protons into periplasm. So primary source of energy is used to create the secondary energy source. Now high concentration of protons in the periplasm is the form of energy. Now these protons flow passively back into the cytoplasm, and while flowing back passively, they also bring other solute molecule along with them. Okay, so flow of protons back into the cytoplasm is an exergonic reaction, and this flow of solute into the cytoplasm is an endergonic reaction. Okay, so this exergonic reaction is coupled with endergonic reaction for the solute uptake. This type of solute transport is known as secondary active transport. It requires the secondary source of energy. Okay, so all that antipode, sympode and unipode, they are the types of. Okay, whereas in case of primary active transport, the primary source of energy is used. The solute accumulation is coupled directly to an exergonic chemical reaction. So hydrolysis of ATP to ADP is an exergonic coupled reaction, and then this energy is used for the uptake of solute. So this is primary active transport, where ATP molecule is hydrolyzed to uptake the solute. Okay, ATP is hydrolyzed to ADP and inorganic phosphate. This is an exergonic reaction that usually liberates an energy equivalent to 30.5 kilojoule or 7.3 kilocalories. Okay, and the secondary active transport occurs when endergonic transport of one solute is coupled to exergonic flow of a different solute that was originally pumped uphill by the primary. Okay, so understood what is primary active transport and secondary active transport? Okay, now the question arises, how much energy is required for the uptake of solute? How much amount of energy is required for the uptake of solute? The energy required for the uptake of solute is equivalent to the initial concentration gradient. Means the difference in the concentration of that particular solute across the membrane. Suppose the difference is very low. Difference is very low. 8 molecules are present outside the cell and 10 molecules are present inside the cell. Difference is low. So less amount of energy is required to uptake the that particular solute molecule. And if the difference is very large, for example, only one molecule of solute is available in the molecules present in the cytoplasm, so the difference is large, so more amount of energy will be required for the uptake of solute. And we know that we can't measure the free energy or the um, availability of energy. What we can measure is the change in the energy, that is known as free energy change or delta G. So the amount of energy needed for the transport of a solute against a gradient can be calculated from the initial concentration gradient. And the general equation for free energy change in chemical process that converts substrate to product is the delta G is equal to delta G prime 0 plus RT natural log of concentration of product divided by concentration of reactant or substrate. Here the delta G is nothing but the free energy change, and this delta G prime 0 is nothing but the standard free energy change in biological conditions. Okay, the prime sign indicates that it is related with biological condition, and this delta G degree is nothing but the standard free energy change. But since prime is introduced, it means the standard free energy change in biological conditions, which is different from the chemical conditions. In chemical conditions, what we say that standard free energy means the 1 molar of solute, 1 molar of reactants, and there is um, what we say there are specific conditions of temperature and pressure. So such conditions are not possible in biological condition. For example, the hydrogen ion concentration, that is 1 molar, it is not possible in biological conditions. It will be highly acidic conditions, and that will not be tolerated by the biological cells. In biological conditions, usually the reactions occur at neutral pH, that is pH 7, and pH is negative log of hydrogen ion concentration, so it goes to 10 raised to minus 7 mole. So concentration of the protons or hydrogen ions in biological condition is 10 raised to minus 7 mole, but in case of the chemistry it is the 1 molar, isn't it? So the large difference is there, and hence in biological condition always the prime sign is given, that is the standard conditions in biological conditions. So RT is R is nothing but the P. P is the product and S is reactant. Now in this solute uptake, the product is the solute that is uptaken, means which has entered into the cytoplasm, and the substrate is the concentration of solute outside the साइटोप्लाज्म, दैट इज इन द पेरिप्लाज्म. ओके, पहले वो पेरिप्लाज्म में था, उसके बाद साइटोप्लाज्म में आया. सॉल्यूट इज सेम, बट पहले वो पेरिप्लाज्म में था, देयरफॉर इट इज एस, and when it comes to cytoplasm at the end of reaction, it is P. Okay, so higher the concentration in into the periplasm, low then the energy required will be more. So in this way the secondary active transport can be. So these are the transporter protein that transport two different molecules simultaneously from one side to other side. Okay, usually from the periplasm to cytoplasm. Okay, and this transport is simultaneous transport in one direction for two different solute molecule. In case of antipode, the two different molecules are transported in opposite direction through the same transporter proteins at the same time, whereas in unipode only one solute is transported in one direction. Okay, but this is also driven by the electrochemical gradient, so that separates the concentration of charge and ions, and then one solute is transported to the other. Now come to the important topic, that is ion gradient provides energy for secondary active transport. Now we are going to explore this topic with one example, and that example is of lactose transporter. Okay, so ion gradient means the difference in the concentration of ions across the membrane. So generally in biological systems, two different ion concentrations can be used. The first one is sodium ion gradient, and second one is the proton gradient. So this sodium ion gradient and proton gradient can provide the energy for the transport of other solute. Okay, so cell spends its primary energy to create the gradient of sodium ion and protons, and then they use this gradient for the solute uptake. Many cell types contains the transport systems that couple the spontaneous downhill flow of these ions to the simultaneous uphill pumping of other ions or sugars or amino acids. So many different important biomolecules are transported by using this system. So it is not that every time ATP is hydrolyzed for the solute uptake. Many a times the sodium ion gradient and the proton gradient are also used for the solute uptake. Okay, so lactose transporter is an important example, well studied example of the proton driven co-transport. Now lactose is a milk sugar, and this is a disaccharide. It is made up of glucose and galactose. So usually the molecule is very some chemical gradient, either a sodium ion gradient or proton gradient, and that sodium ion gradient and proton ion gradient can be used for the uptake of this lactose by a co-transport system. Co-transport simultaneously. Okay, so this is a cell membrane, and in this cell membrane you can see there is a protein. This protein is a transporter protein, and the name of this protein is lactose transporter. Okay, it is also called as lactose permease. Okay, and this is a single polypeptide chain. यहाँ पर आपको वो डायग्राम बहुत ही अच्छा दिख रहा है, but actually it is a polypeptide chain. It is a single polypeptide chain having 417 residues. Okay, that functions as a monomer. Monomer means it has a single unit. Okay, a single unit of the polypeptide chain having 417 residues, it forms the transporter molecule. That more deep. So the E. coli cell produces the gradient of protons across the membrane. Now protons are positively charged, therefore there is the outer face of the membrane is positively charged and inner face of the membrane is negatively charged, and the energy to pump the protons from cytoplasm to periplasm is provided by the oxidation of organic compound. So the lipid bilayer is impermeable to protons. Protons cannot enter through this lipid bilayer. Okay, they can enter into the cytoplasm only through these transporter proteins. So lactose transporter provides a route for the entry of the protons, and that transport of protons provides energy for the lactose uptake. So this is again very important. If protons can enter into the cytoplasm through any side or through this phospholipid bilayer, they cannot provide energy to this lactose transporter. Okay, this lactose transporter protein is actually a member of a protein family that is known as major facilitator superfamily protein. Okay, there are different families of proteins. Families of proteins means the proteins having similar characters are grouped into certain families. We will see that topic later on. So there are different families of proteins. So this lactose transporter is the member of this major facilitator superfamily protein, and the important property of this family is that there are 12 transmembrane helices. Helices means the helical turn, alpha helix of that particular protein. So this is a single polypeptide chain from this N terminal to this C terminal. It is a single polypeptide chain, but this single polypeptide chain transfers through this cytoplasm, this cytoplasmic membrane. This is cytoplasmic membrane. It transfers through this cytoplasmic membrane 12 times. So there are 12 transmembrane helices. Okay, so together these 12 transmembrane helices forms the chain. Is a single polypeptide chain, but it has 12 helices. As a result, the channel is closed. Then region of banana binds to each other. As a result, the channel is open outside, so the lactose enters into this channel, and then again the upper side is closed and the lactose then released into the cytoplasm. So rocking banana, so ये banana हमेशा हिलते रहता है. As a result, it is known as the rocking banana model. So the proposed mechanism for transmembrane passage of substrate involves a rocking motion between the two domains driven by substrate binding and proton movement. So alternatively exposing the substrate binding domain to cytoplasm and to the periplasm. So एक बार वो पेरिप्लाज्म में ओपन होता है, दूसरी बार वो साइटोप्लाज्म में ओपन होता है. जब वो पेरिप्लाज्म में ओपन होगा, द लैक्टोस विल enter into the cavity, then it will close from the periplasmic side and the lactose will be released into the cytoplasm. So therefore it is called as rocking banana. You can just do it. आप भी practice कर सकते हो वैसे. ये बनाना है, दो बनाना है. Okay, so initially it is closed, so the lactose cannot enter, and then it is open, lactose enters into the cavity, then it is closed outside, lactose is released into the cytoplasm. So this is rocking banana. All about the uh, uptake of solute using electrochemical gradient or active transfer.